Welcome to the NBA DFS build. I'm Kevin Roberts. Going solo today, doing an earlier show than usual because it's better than doing no show. Yesterday was not great. I broke even, so it wasn't the end of the world. But all day I was like, this isn't a Luka or Jokic slate. I didn't really think they were necessary. And, Taylor and I talked about Luka, his crazy run possibly coming to an end at some point soon, just because it's just as good as he is. It's just not sustainable. And sure enough, Jokic got 40 and Luka was not good and then got hurt. So that was the right strategy. I ended up going like 50-50. I like 50 Luka and 50 no Luka or Jokic. I basically faded Jokic because I didn't like the spot. So not a winning night for me, but we did hit on some good plays. Duran was one of them. That was kind of my favorite play of the slate. I said if I was building around one guy, Duran, is who I wanted to start with, and he smashed, got almost 70 fantasy points. So if you went with Duran, you built around him, you were off to a good start. A lot of values failed us. It wasn't an amazing slate, but hopefully you did okay. But I'm going to go over the 6-game slate for today. Lots of injury news early, so I'm imagining more news trickles in, and this slate just gets really wild. But hopefully I can set you up for success, and you can make those decisions on the fly. And at the worst, I'll talk over some hypothetical injury situations and let you know which way I'm leaning and who I like for each of these games. If I help you out in any way, please give this video a like and also consider subscribing to our channel. The DFS build helps us out a lot. We're one away from 100 subscribers. We really appreciate all the views, all the comments, all the subscribes, obviously. And hopefully we can keep growing and establish this community. All right, let's get right into it. We got the Suns and Celtics at TD Garden. Celtics are 6-point favorites. This game does have a pretty nice 227 total. It does look like kind of the best game on this slate. It's the lowest spread. It's the second highest total. Boston in Boston is not a good matchup by any means, but the odds and total are inviting, and the Celtics are not at full strength. So, that's not something we should be ignoring by any means. Starting on the Phoenix side, they are at full strength too. Eric Gordon is the only one who's questionable at the moment. So if Eric Gordon is out, you could maybe bump up Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal a tick. I don't think they're priorities even with Gordon out. And if Gordon is in, I don't really like any of them. KD and Devin look totally fine. It's not the best matchup, so I'm not going to force a 9.5 KD into my lineups. Devin Booker at sub 9 is kind of interesting for tournaments. He does have an okay projection. He's got the best boom rating at DFS Hero for the Suns, which, by the way, you can get 15% off of DFS Hero right now by hitting the link below in the video description. Some of my best lineups last night end up coming out of their sims. So I highly recommend at least checking it out and playing around with it and seeing if it's, the right tool for you. Booker and KD are totally fine. I think Beal would be the Sun that I would lean to the most. 6.7K is a pretty nice price for him. I would probably be going on the over on his projection right now. He's got a pretty timid 31-point projection at DFS Hero, but he's unowned and he's got the second best boom rating for the Suns. So I'm not really targeting the Suns at will here in a tough road spot, but it is a good game environment, and Beal is a pretty good price. On the Boston side, Tatum leads the way at 9.8K. He was pretty good in his last game with a bunch of guys out. Let's see here. What's the news for Boston? Porzingis remains out, and Jaylen Brown is questionable. So obviously, just with Porzingis out alone, all these Boston guys look better. And if Jaylen Brown is out, then you're looking at a 3% usage boost for Tatum. That's just with Porzingis out. It gets even better if Jaylen Brown is out too. And then, Derek White, Drew Holiday look good. Al Horford looks really good at 6.3K with Porzingis out alone. Jaylen Brown being out would only help him. And then if Jaylen is out with Porzingis, you can start looking at Sam Hauser or maybe even Peyton Pritchard. So possibly some okay value from Boston. If Jaylen is in, I'm probably only going out of my way to use Horford. I think it's a good price. He tends to do well when Porzingis is out. And like I said, it's a good game environment. But I won't talk you out of Tatum at sub 10K here. Looking at the slate, it's not a slate with a ton of must-have studs. Giannis up top at 11.4K, SGA at 10.4. So, Tatum does look pretty darn good, and he looks awesome if Jalen is out. All right, Clippers game, lots to consider here. Kawhi Leonard left his most recent game with an injury. It's not yet declared that he's going to miss this game. In fact, I've seen reports that he very well could play still. A little surprising, but if it was indeed just back spasms, that can obviously be a day-to-day thing, so he could be totally fine. If he's in at 8.4K, that's a pretty good price. So I would not hate Leonard in a vacuum. I wouldn't exactly love the fact that he left his last game early and that he's dealing with some kind of ailment that maybe he's not 100% and that could happen again. So that is definitely in the back of my mind. James Harden's also questionable. So if one or both of these guys are out, Paul George is going to look really, really good. Paul George is not an absolute must if only one of them are out. But the two guys that are there of that trio would still look really, really good, and we could use them. I think he is probably close to a must if both Harden and Leonard sit. If either of those guys sit, Norm Powell would look really good. Russell Westbrook remains out, so Powell's pretty viable at 5.2 anyways, but he would look really good. And if both of them out, I would even look at Amir Coffey at 3.8K, and Terrence Mann at 4.7 would also be viable. On the other side are the Bulls. I'm imagining they will not have Kobe White for this game. No, he has already been ruled out. He had a hip issue at the end of the last night's game, so I don't, it doesn't look like he's going to play. With him out, Ayo Dosunmu looks awesome at 5.9K. Alex Caruso is more in play than usual at 5.5K. They could opt to, give a boost to some of these value guys like Javon Carter or Beatim, or I don't know how to pronounce that guy's name. Even Julian Phillips off the bench. Some of these guys could get extra burn with Kobe White out. But I'd feel best about the starters, the main guys. DeMar, Vooch, Dosunmu, Caruso all look really good. DeMar absolutely smashed last night with 46 real points. Excuse me. So I was really glad when I had a 3v3 on Reddit, and I told somebody to go the safer route, and it was the non-DeMar 3v3. So I apologize for that. That's brutal. But Kobe being out opens up playmaking and just general usage. So DeMar and Vooch would look pretty darn good here. Dosunmu is the guy who stands out the most for me, though. I imagine he's going to run the offense a lot more. And at 5.9, that's going to be really tough to get away from. He's coming in at 19% ownership. He has the second best boom rating for the Bulls on this slate. So he looks really, really inviting. Next game, Wizards and Rockets. This game has a 225.5 total. Third best total of the slate, 7.5 point spread with the Rockets favored at home. We got to monitor the Washington Wizards bigs. Bagley is out, and Rashawn Holmes is questionable. So the clear solution there is if Rashawn is in at 4.5K, he would be an okay value. And if he's out, they would probably just keep rolling with Kuz at the 5. So I'm kind of just hoping Rashawn is out, so I don't have to deal with that. And then Kuz looks really good at 8.2K in that case. He's playable anyways, but he looks really good if he starts at the 5. Everybody else is just okay. I don't have any problem with that. The Wizards' minutes have been up, so they're very, very viable plays at this point. It's just they're still the Wizards, and it's not like it's a really close spread. Koulibaly at 4.5 stands out. Corey Kispert still looks good at 5.4K. Tyus Jones is coming in as the chalkiest play at 6.2K. I'm okay with that. He's got a 21% boom rating at DFS Hero. That's fine. I think I would start with Kuz here, and then I'd look at the cheap guys like Kispert and Koulibaly, but everybody's in play. For the Rockets, Şengün remains out, obviously, with a pretty bad leg injury. So that opens up a lot of usage. Jalen Green gets like an 8% usage spike when he's out. So he looks really good. FVV's prices come up, but he looks really good. But the guy I especially like is Jabari Smith at 6.6K. He got to start at center last game, and if that's going to continue, I mean, especially against the Wizards, he looks great. For value, Dylan Brooks and Amen Thompson are totally fine, but and especially if recency bias is going to get people away from them, they look interesting, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Ownership is very, very heavy on Houston. Obviously, Şengün not being there is a big part of that, but also facing the Wizards in a game with a solid total. So once again, Houston looks very, very good, and I'm not going to necessarily talk you off anybody. Even Jock Landale off the bench, 4.6K. He did really well in his last game in 26 minutes. He's viable. But I'm good. My main priority here is Jabari, probably the value again. And then if you get to Jalen Green and Fred VanVleet, no problems with that at all. All right, next game, we got Philly at Milwaukee. Need more water, apparently. Endless tickle. For weeks, I've been battling a cold. Awesome stuff. Philly is an 8.5-point road dog, as expected with no Joel Embiid. They do have everybody else in the lineup, though. So, for better or worse, except for DeAnthony Melton, he remains out. So, Tyrese Maxey at 8.5K does look pretty good. He's got a really nice usage rate. He's got a pretty good ceiling. So, I don't mind him, especially if you're going to end up playing Bucks. And then, Tobias. Tobias is okay. I don't think I'd get there. Oubre, Hield, Reed are just all okay. But yeah, I think it's just Maxey for me here. I don't really envision this game staying very close. I don't want to play for blowouts. Really, we've kind of had that burn us. But Maxey projects okay, and everybody else doesn't. So I'd probably just be Maxey or bust for Philly. On the other side, you got the Bucks. They could be without Malik Beasley, which probably elevates Pat Bev just a little bit at 3.6K. I mean, Pat Bev is probable, I believe. So assuming Bev is in and Beasley's out, Bev is a pretty good value play at 3.6K. I don't mind him. I think Pat Connaughton at 3.4, AJ Green at 3 men flat. Those guys are also on your radar if Beasley's out, just because they could get the spot start instead of Bev. But I would start with Bev there for sure, just because he's played well recently. He's in more reliable role. Giannis up top at 11.4K. I'm not going to tell you Giannis is a bad play here. There's no Embiid to stop Giannis inside. He's got, I think, the best projection in the slate. Yeah. I mean, assuming Luka actually misses, and we'll get to that, then Giannis looks really, really good. He's not even garnering that much ownership. I personally don't think he's that necessary here. So, honestly, cue an 80-point fantasy outing, because every time I fade Giannis, he smashes, and every time I play Giannis, he gets like 40. It's so annoying. Dame is in play. He had a really bad game in his last game. I liked him a lot in that game. He just was terrible. His prices come down to 8.6. He has good projection. He looks pretty good here, 27% boom rating. If there's going to be ownership on Giannis, I think Dame is very interesting, but honestly, the ownership so far is favoring Lillard. So I would agree with that. I do think if he's going to end up being kind of chalky, I'd go somewhere else maybe. But it does look like a pretty good pivot off of FVV at the moment. FVV is pretty chalky, even more chalky. So he does look interesting. And, especially if recency bias is going to hit and that ownership lowers, Dame looks pretty good. Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez are kind of just there. I don't really want to play them. All right, Dallas is really where the slate gets interesting. Luka was not good last night, but he also exited with an injury. If he is indeed out, Kyrie Irving looks like a lock at this 8.4K price. I don't ever want to just lock a guy in, but I don't see how we fade Kyrie if Luka's out at that price. If he was like above 9K and there's all these good options, which there are, there's Devin, there's Brunson, there's Maxey, there's SGA, there's Fred VanVleet, on and on, right? You can entertain that always if a guy's going to be mega chalky and he's pricey, but 8.4K feels way too cheap to actually do that. Obviously, that means nothing if Luka's in. I think you could still play Kyrie at 8.4, but if Luka ends up playing, I would be, far less interested. Luka himself at 12.7K, if he's in, yeah, Luka looks good. He did get hurt He just had down games, so maybe that all combines with his price to make him unowned. And unowned Luka is something I always want to sign myself up for. So it's very much I like Luka and nobody else for Dallas. If he's in, if he's out, I like Kyrie. And if Luka is out, Tim Hardaway looks really good at 4K flat. Josh Green at 3.7K looks pretty good. He ended up getting a lot of run last night, especially after Luka left. Gafford has made, 32? What did he do last night? This guy is freaking insane. I told everybody, that's not sustainable. He went 5 for 5 again last night. He's made 33 straight shots. It really isn't sustainable. Okay, he absolutely smashed 7 blocks. Ridiculous. But hey, 4.9K, his price even went down. 25% boom rating, best boom rating for the Mavs on this slate. I mean, I guess Gafford is still playable. He's definitely on the radar, even more so if Luka's out. But geez Louise, guy just keeps wrecking. And then PJ Washington at 5.1K. I think his minutes would be a little bit safer with Luka out because they would probably want his scoring. All right, OKC, SGA looks awesome up top. 53 fantasy point projection, 27% boom rating. He's not yet garnering a crazy amount of ownership just because there's a lot of really good plays below him. And then Luka isn't, I don't think he's officially out yet. I know he's not officially out. He was ruled out for the end of last night's game, but he's not officially out for this slate. So I think if I was going to go with SGA, I would be more inclined to go with him if Luka was in because his ownership would stay down. His price is good at 10.4. Dallas is a good matchup, 28th against point guards. Yup. He just does a shit ton when he's out there. Everything looks good for SGA. I think he's very, very playable no matter what. I just think if Luka's out, he's probably going to end up being like the stud that everybody gravitates towards, and he's going to be pretty owned. So just for the sake of getting a really good elite play at low ownership, I would kind of prefer Luka to be in, and then entertain the idea of fading Luka or maybe even pairing them because it could be a really good game if Luka is in. Right now it's a 10-point spread because I'm guessing sportsbooks are assuming Luka might not play. But it's got 236.5 total. It's the best total of the night. So it's like the best game environment. So SGA and Luka together feels pretty cool. Or SGA and Kyrie together would be good if Luka's out. Chet at 7.2, totally fine. Jalen at 6.8. He's off the injury report. He looks awesome. And then that's pretty much it for that. I think, Gordon Hayward started last game with Jalen out, so he's going to be a non-factor at 4K at this point. I don't really like doing Giddey at 5.7. His minutes are kind of all over the place. It's mostly just the big three for OKC. I think the best play for me here is going to be Jalen Williams, just because of his price. But SGA's got the best ceiling, best boom rating, and the best matchup for the Thunder. All right, last game of the night, Knicks and Blazers is probably the worst game of the night. It's got the biggest spread at 11.5. Blazers are home dogs, as you would think. It's got a really gross 205.5 total. So there's really not much that is exciting me here. I also don't like that Jalen Brunson has not been back to like max minutes yet. Clearly Tibbs is playing it safe and they're also kind of blowing teams out a little bit. Let's see how they've been doing with him in there. Well, they did have 2 blowouts, and then one game they scored 73 points in a loss. Yuck. Which, by the way, they held the Sixers to 79 points in 2 straight games. And their defense has held opponents under 80 points in 3 straight games. That's pretty gross. So Godspeed to the Blazers, man. If the Knicks are doing that to the Sixers and the Magic, Blazers are going to have a rough night. But Brunson in a vacuum at 9K in this spot against the Blazers. They ranked 21st against point guards. He looks good. Can we trust that he's actually going to get like 35 minutes? Can we trust the game's going to stay close? That's a double no for me. I think Brunson looks like a really good tournament play and a nice hammer play, but not a priority. Josh Hart has been like point LeBron out here lately. He's obviously very much in place till a 7.3K, getting all of the minutes. He's dipped below 39 minutes one time since February 14th. So even with OG on a newbie back, I think his minutes are like pretty darn safe. So he's coming at 15% ownership, 22% boom rating, 36-point projection, and the Blazers are 27th against forwards. So yeah, Josh Hart looks really, really good. I do think it is a little chasey because he had 67 fantasy points in his last game. And before in his previous 3 games, he topped 40 fantasy points 0 times. So could that be a little bit chasey? It's definitely chasey if you're like banking on getting 60 fantasy points again. But he is a good play. DiVincenzo is just fine at 7-1. Don't really love him with OG back, not at that price. He's okay. You can play him, but I don't think I'd prioritize him at all. How did OG do for minutes? He is back. He played his last game and played 29 minutes. So I'd imagine he plays even more in this game tonight, assuming it doesn't blow out. And at 5.9K, I think he's viable at this point. I just don't think he's like an amazing player or anything. And with them back at, mostly full strength, obviously Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson are still out, but this is the team we've kind of known for a couple months now. And with OG there, I'm just not really loving the Knicks as priorities. All right, lastly, DeAndre Ayton has been a god lately. Not sure what's gotten into him at 7.7K. He's kind of too cheap for who he's been lately. 62, 43, 61 fantasy points. A couple games before that, 57 fantasy points. I mean, I don't know what's gotten into him, but he's been a monster. I do not like this matchup for him whatsoever. I don't like the spread. Don't love the price. I understand why he's that price, and he does project okay. But if people are going to be rostering Ayton, that's a no for me. Anthony Simons, same exact price, worst projection. It's a bad matchup. Not really looking for that. I think the only guy I really would look at here would be Delano Banton at 5K. Let's see how he did last night. He ended up starting with Jeremy Grant out. Let's see. He played only 9. No, that is not updated. All right. I'm not going to go look for that right now and make you wait. Point is, though, Banton at 5K flat is in play for me if he starts and if Jeremy Grant remains out. Because we do know Malcolm Brogdon is still out, and Jabari Walker might also be out too. So although the Blazers did say he is nearing a return, I don't think he directly impacts Banton that much. But with all the other news, I think Banton is viable if it breaks just right. All right, that was going to do for me. My throat won't allow me to go any further. Hopefully it helped you out a little bit, set you up for success for today. If you get any help from this video at all, please give it a like and also consider subscribing to our channel. It will be an interesting slate. I think a lot of it hinges on Luka's status. Right now, I'm just kind of planning for him to be out, and I'm building around Kyrie. I'm also kind of tentatively planning for Kawhi or Harden to miss, so I like Paul George. With Porzingis out, I like Al Horford, and then I really like Jabari Smith at the 5 for the Rockets. So that's kind of my core right now, and maybe loosely going over to Sunmu too with Kobe White out. And then it really is going to depend on ownership. So right now, a lot of the ownership is flocking to the Rockets, and I'm okay with taking on the Jabari ownership. Let's see, what is it actually? He's like the 4th most owned Rocket. So if everybody's owning these dudes, I might find value elsewhere, especially if Luka's out. How necessary Dylan Brooks and Amen Thompson if we can look at Tim Hardaway Jr., But I definitely would be looking at these guys above Banton or Kispert, and guys like that, or maybe even Pat Bev too. So lots to consider. Luka is the first domino to fall. Hopefully we get some news, and hopefully this helps you out. Thanks for watching, and good luck.